boys and girls, and welcome to the concession stand here on the KB Radio Network. I am your host, Kevin Reed, and this is the review of House of the Dragon, Season 2, Episode 5, entitled Regent. And this episode is, I guess you could say, the mid-season filler of the of the second season. We're coming off an epic end to the last episode, episode 4, where we saw dragon battles, we saw deaths, we saw people getting torched. You know, it was an amazing episode that took place in episode 4. Episode 5, it took a step back this week, and you know, I didn't hate this episode. This wasn't a bad episode, but it clearly was not one of the better episodes of this season. It is heavily dialogue driven, and you can make the argument boring at times if you're not engaged. For those who are unengaged, this would be a click, find something else to watch episode. But if you're truly immersed in this show, in the lore of Game of Thrones as a whole, you will still watch it because there are some interesting things that took place in this episode. Some real good acting in scenes in this episode, and you know, so on and so forth. We're gonna go through it bit by, well, not bit by bit, I take that back, but we're gonna touch in on some plot points that went on during this episode that followed up that epic battle from last week. We know last week we saw the tragic death of Rhaenys, and it's one of those deaths that stuck with me, if I could talk, stuck with me all week. And it just, I don't know what it was. It didn't hit me last Sunday when it happened. I mean, it hit me to the point I'm like, man, it's messed up. But after I thought about it, and I thought about how Eve Best put in an awesome performance as Rhaenys, and we're going to miss that going forward, and how essential that character is in Rhaenyra's reign, and how the blacks are going to move forward without her, and not to mention Corlys, her husband. You know, how is he going to react and everything? It started to get to me all week. I was like, oh man, that really stinks. And her dragon, Meleys, that perished as well, which is the biggest dragon on the black side. And so this was like a double whammy. You know, losing one of their better fighters and warriors and leaders along with their biggest dragon. And so that was a 1-2 punch that Rhaenyra wasn't expecting. Nobody was expecting. Let's not forget that trap was laid out for Rhaenyra. Rhaenyra was going to go, but Rhaenys went in her stead. She volunteered to go in her stead, and look what happened. Also, that took place in that battle, we got somebody who wished they were dead, who's probably wishing that they were dead, and that is King Aegon. I mean, he got torched by his own brother. You know, what took place, he probably would be dead right now. Now, when that episode went off last week, I thought he was dead. But lo and behold, he's still alive, barely. And I mean, barely alive. He is burnt to a crisp, multiple fractures and broken bones and internal injuries, and they don't have x-ray machines and MRIs back there in Westeros, so they're basically just leaving it in God's hands at this point. And he is just toe up from the flow up. Also, his dragon Sunfire has perished, but he would have been dead had not Kristen Cole walked up on Aemon. I think Aemon was going to do him in. He was going to put him out of his misery. Because let's not forget, Aemon was sheathing his sword. Or at least he sheathed his sword when Kristen Cole walked up. And so I think he was going to kill Aegon. for reasons that played out in this episode. But this episode opens up very somber. You know, we did get some mourning here. It opens with uh, Lord Corliss. I couldn't think of his name. Corliss walking to his throne, just distraught by the death of his wife, and I mean, beautiful act. I love acting that's in between the words. You know that it's all emotions. It's emoting your feelings through facial expressions and things of that nature. I love that's acting to me, and I get joy out of that. I get as much joy out of that as I do for huge action, exploding cars and buildings type scene. And that's just me. But I loved his emotion. You felt the weight when he was walking up to the throne, and you felt like he had the weight of that whole castle on his shoulders as he was walking. The devastation, the pain, I mean, the hurt, all that just wrapped up in one, and he's just sitting there without his wife. It was heartbreaking. Then we get a quick little flash of Rhaenyra as she kind of mourns as she looks off into the sunset or the sunrise, whatever the sun was, whatever direction the sun was going. But she was looking off into the distance, hurt and devastated by the death of Rhaenys. And, I like that. I like that they acknowledged that they had that. But part of the reason why this episode was a little disappointing to me, it wasn't enough of that. We got a couple of more scenes with Corliss, and of course, obviously, he's still devastated. But from anybody else, nobody else really felt the pain of Rhaenys. Rhaenys' death. I felt like Alicent should have had a bigger reaction or more of a reaction to her death because, at the end of the day, they did have a level of respect for her, and she had a level of respect for Rhaenys. But I guess she was occupied. Her well done son had returned back to the castle. So I guess her mind was elsewhere. And this was another part that I loved about this show. And look, as much as I was disappointed by this episode, they had so many good scenes sprinkled throughout that just makes it a exceptional episode. One of the great scenes after they had paraded Meleys, the dragon's head, through the streets of King's Landing, and making a spectacle out of it that the king slayed the dragon and slayed Rhaenys and all this here, and Alicent is standing looking over this little processional, and she's standing there with Aemon, and she looks over at Aemon and sees the dagger that Aegon has, or at least he had. And so she's starting to be a little skeptical, like, okay, what really happened to Aegon? What happened here? And she never says anything, but you can see the wheels turning in her head. Once again, the acting, the emoting through without words. And so we get to the council part where they're discussing what's next and all this here, and Aemon throws out there, hey, hey, I know my brother is all crispy fried in the bedroom over there, but we need a king to sit in his stead. We need somebody that's going to sit in his stead. And so we have Alicent. She steps up. She steps up to take the reins, and everybody on the council disagrees. Even Larys, which was shocking. He went against Alicent, which was funny. She was crushed by that. And Kristen Cole, he's just cowering in his chair like a little wimp. He's not saying anything, but after it's all said and done, they all agree that Amon should sit at the head. He should be the interim king, if you will. And so he proudly walks up, takes his seat at the head of the table, and oh my God, we want to talk about a beautifully directed scene. And what makes this beautifully directed, the camera never moves. Well, it does. It just subtly zooms in on Olivia Cook's face as she's sitting there, and Amon is throwing out all these strategies and taking control of the situation and the council and bouncing these strategies off of. And she realizes in that moment, at least this was my interpretation of it, it can come out and be completely different, which this show has done before. But you could tell at that moment, it registers to her that this was all basically a coup. This was set up for Amon to be the king. And the, just her face, the way she was staring at her son, knowing that her son put a plot together to kill her other son or incapacitate her other son just to sit at the throne. It was a beautifully directed scene, beautifully acted scene and written scene. It basically saved the episode. The rest of the episode was hit or miss with me. A lot of politics going on. We still have Damon in what is it, Hindale, wherever he's at, that castle that's haunted, and he's still tripping out. Still trying to enlist help. He can't enlist help. You have a group of people who rather have their houses torched, rather be eaten by a dragon than to join. And this kind of blows his mind, and he lets him go because we know the old Damon would have killed him instantly, but he lets him go because he likes that. He feels that these are the type of people we need, and we need to persuade them in some shape, form, or fashion to join our side. So yeah, this was a very slow episode. The episode ends with Rhaenyra and Jace talking about how she is a dragon rider. She doesn't feel right sitting back and letting other people fight for her birthright. She needs to be out in the fight. She wants to fight. But Jace is like, well, we don't have a dragon, or she said it, or whatever. We lost our best dragon, basically, our biggest dragon. But we do have two other dragons right beneath our feet, that they're ready to go, but we don't have dragon riders. And it's Jace, the one who puts it in her head that we still have family lineage. There are others with our bloodline that can ride the dragons. It's not out of the realm of possibilities that there are more of their family scattered about. And we met two of them. There's the blacksmith who, the one with the sick child, and the one who had asked Aegon, like in episode 2, maybe 1 or 2, for more funds to continue to build the weapons and stuff like that. Yeah, he's part of the lineage. I do know that. And the other one who said who was at that bar, and he flat out said that he's the bastard son of a Targaryen. And so that's 2 there. And so they're out there. They just have to find them. And she looks back and she sees that, yeah, we have records of it. We do have records. We have a family tree that I just got to climb and find the right branch. And agrees with Jace that it's a mad thought. And the episode ends. I think it's a great setup. This show does a great job of doing that. It's a great setup, but nothing else happened in this episode. Absolutely nothing. It was dialogue heavy, it just, I guess it was the fact we're coming off of the high of watching a dragon battle, 3 dragons going at it, and then to get this bleh episode and under any other circumstances would be a very entertaining episode, but it just had the unfortunate luck of following up that Dance of the Dragons. And, you know, it is what it is. It just felt filler. But at the end of the day, it did do a good job of pushing the story along, pushing the storylines along. Uh, uh, you know, some twists and turns here, some reveals here, and I honestly think that Allison is the X factor here because everything is starting to crumble for her. You know, she learned the truth a few episodes ago that her son wasn't the heir. You know what, she misheard Viserys. That wasn't what he meant. And so all of that's in her head. You know, the death of her grandson, her father being exiled, and her son being roasted like some Popeye's chicken. You know, it's just and her other son being this tyrant in a sense. So her world is starting to come to an end. Oh, by the way, Kristen Cole, that she's probably pregnant for, and she's trying to miscarry, and so there's that as well. And so her world is coming apart. So what she's gonna do going forward, we shall see. We shall see. Like I said, this wasn't the best episode, but it was entertaining at parts. I would like to know what you thought of episode 5 of House of the Dragons season 2. Let me know by email. Email the show, kbradiopodcast@gmail.com. Also, you can search for the show on all social media platforms. Just search for the KB Radio Network, and that includes YouTube. Subscribe to the KB Radio Network channel and like this video if you don't mind. Don't forget about the 5 stars, the reviews, and sharing this show. If you're listening on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, iHeartRadio, wherever you are currently listening to the concession stand here on the KB Radio Network. Everybody, thank you for joining me for this review of House of the Dragon Season 2, Episode 5. Can't wait to speak to you next week for Episode 6. Want you all to know that I love you. Continue to love everyone, and until we speak again, you all be blessed.